Hi everybody, welcome to the Ultimate Ummagumma Live Review. This is the Ummagumma Live album, released on November 7th, 1969 as part of a package with Ummagumma. We'll talk about that in a minute. What you see here on the live album, this is a cover. This cover has a photo of Nick Mason and his drum kit. And Nick he's really proud of all the equipment that he takes on tour. And what they did was they took all the drums out and let me just flip that up there like that, if you can see that. Yeah, all the different drums and drum sets and drumsticks and all that stuff. And this is part of a 2-disc set. So on this set, you know, you've got the traditional cover. And I remember buying this back in 1994. It came in a 2-disc. It was all saran wrapped or whatever, shrink wrapped. I bought this at the Exclusive Company in Green Bay. And kind of fascinating. I also got I should have took that down, but it came with a poster. See, there's room in here to stick a poster, fold it up. But I got a poster that's hanging on the wall there, and it's basically this right here. Okay. So yeah, in the live cover, like I said, this is a 1994 remaster, so they did a great job just with the reproduction, putting a label on the CD, and then inside you get some nice pictures of the band in here. You know, just this is Pink Floyd back in the late 60s, and you got some lyrics. I mean, there aren't a lot of, this is a mainly instrumental album, but you got some lyrics and cool picture of Roger and that stuff. So yeah, that is the live album, and that is going to be the focus of this video. Okay. Now, a lot of the information that I have on this book comes from this book called Saucerful of Secrets by Nicholas Schaffner. This was printed in the 90s, and I picked it up in the 90s. You can tell it's really shop worn. I've read this. I mean, I go to this a lot, but I just wanted to share with you a lot of my knowledge about Pink Floyd comes from this book, but especially about this Ummagumma era. In the book, I wanted to read this passage to you from Nicholas Schaffner. The band was floundering around looking for their identity after the Piper at the Gates of Dawn, Saucerful Secrets, and more. And Rick Wright wanted the band to compose real music, and that's where the studio album came from. Interstellar Overdrive was dropped from the live release, and the idea was to capture a superior live takes on the music. And these were recorded at the College of Commerce and at Mother's Club in Birmingham in the UK. Okay. And then there was one other thing I wanted to share right off the bat. Because Ummagumma, it's a weird name for an album, right? Sci-fi-oriented Floydians assume that the album's cryptic title referred to the sages known as Umma in Dune. There was, after all, talk at this time of the band scoring a movie of the Frank Herbert epic. But Nick Mason, whose 9-minute electronically treated drum solo climaxes the album, confirms that Ummagumma was actually a slang expression for copulation picked up in Cambridge by Sid, Roger, and Dave. It's just a name. It wasn't taken because it means anything. It was taken because it sounded interesting and nice. And it can be either made to sound like a chant or as a sort of exclamation. Ummagumma also boasted one of Hypnosis's most quintessentially trippy covers, which depicted the Floyd posing next to a picture of the Floyd posing next to a picture. And that's this. Okay, so the photo is legendary, and but also Ummagumma. It's sex, I guess. Okay. Also, before we jump, one last thing. I want to pay homage to internet user K-Schutz, who had a large influence into my transformation as a Pink Floyd fan. Specifically with these early year albums, specifically Saucerful of Secrets. I've really gotten to know these albums better in the last couple of years. I mean, I've listened to them back in the 90s and 2000s, but I've certainly appreciate them more, and I would say K-Schutz had a lot to do with it. Okay. So let's dig into this. Enough of the banter. Ummagumma live album. First track is Astronomy Domine, or Astronomy Domini. That's how Nick Mason says it. It's a Syd Barrett tune, and it's 8 minutes and 25 seconds from The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Track 2 is Careful with That Axe, Eugene. It's a group collaboration. Roger Waters, Richard Wright, Nick Mason, David Gilmour. The book, the Nicholas Schaffner book, says this is the first ever David Gilmour composition for Pink Floyd. 8 minutes, 47 seconds, and it comes from Relics, which is like a greatest hits album. It's also a B-side to Point Me at the Sky, which is a single that they released in the late 60s. And then there's an earlier version, or more like a later version of Careful with That Axe, Eugene, called Come In Number 51, Your Time Is Up. And that's with the Zabriskie Point movie soundtrack. Okay, side 2 is Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. It's a Roger Waters song, and it's 9 minutes and 21 seconds from A Saucerful of Secrets. And then lastly, the title track, A Saucerful of Secrets, from the album A Saucerful of Secrets. It is also a group collaboration of Waters, Wright, Mason, and Gilmour, and it's 12 minutes and 51 seconds. That track is broken into 4 parts: Something Else, Syncopated Pandemonium, Storm Signal, and Celestial Voices. So when we get to that track, and I'm referring to these pieces, that's what it is. It's just it's a 4-part sequence. And when you're listening to it, they really stand out. Like, you definitely know you're transitioning from, sequence to sequence. There's a lot of violence on this live album, and it's baked into the riffs, and the violence is baked into the big ideas of the album, and it's very psychedelic too, and that's really what early Pink Floyd was about. It was about psychedelic music. And let me tell you this. This video will be a little bit different from the other videos I've done, especially on album reviews. But from a live album review, let's just keep it best to deep dive by comparing it to other versions from other records, and specifically live records. So what I'm not going to do is give you a track-by-track analysis. I'll be doing that when we do the studio album reviews for Pink Floyd, which I'm planning on doing. But for this one, I'm largely going to do a compare between Ummagumma and then fan favorite live Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii, which I have here is the director's cut. And then Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets, okay, this is the Blu-ray, and it's from 2020-ish. Now, not all of these tracks are on, not all the tracks from Ummagumma are on these two, but most of them are, okay? So let me stop and explain for a second. Astronomy Domini is on both Ummagumma and Nick Mason, but it's not on Pompeii. Careful with That Axe, Eugene is on Ummagumma, but it's not on Pompeii. It's on Ummagumma and Pompeii, but it is not on Nick Mason. Set the Controls and Saucerful of Secrets are on all 3. Okay. And then also you've got you do have some consistencies. I won't be focusing on this too much, but I'll just say a word about it at the end, because the song Echoes is on Pompeii. It's not on here. But I did happen to go to the live Nick Mason show last year, and they played Echoes. And then One of These Days is on both. Okay? It's on both of these, but it's not on Ummagumma. All right. Also, I'll just say there's a lot of tracks on this. If you haven't heard it, it's amazing. Okay? It's got my favorite version of Adam Hartmuther on it, too. All right, now as another bonus, I'll throw in from time to time. There's some of these tracks are on In the Flesh by Roger Waters, 2000, Pink Floyd Pulse, both the CD that was released in 95 and 2005. Here's the DVD of that, and I have this is Pulse. I changed the battery so the light's always lit. It's generally always lit. And then lastly, Roger Waters in the Flesh. Okay. All right. Lastly, I have this box set, Pink Floyd Variations on a Theme of Absence. You can see it right there. And I bought this in '94. It's a boot. I bought it at Radio Chaos in Point. But what's cool about it is on disc 1, there are some studio takes, and I'll talk about that when we get to Careful with That Axe Eugene, and come on in, number 51. Your time is up. Okay. Now, let's get into the very first track. Astronomy Domini, or Astronomy Domine, if you like. On the Ummagumma version, it's 8 minutes and 32 seconds. What stands out to me about it is the vocals are not good here. They're not great. They're somewhere between average and good. I'm guessing that that's David Gilmour singing vocal harmony. David's sort of in the lead, and then Rick's on vocal harmony, almost like a backup. But the vocals seem really thin. Also, the guitar solo is not very striking or powerful, and it seems a little bit low on energy. It's the opening track on this. I'm not sure if it was the opening track on the set, but for a track opener, it's kind of flat. The mix is very underwhelming too, but the bass vocals and the melody, it's just it's not the best version of Astronomy Domini. Okay. Now it is good though. It's fine to listen to. I mean, you're not gonna hate it, and I do quite rather enjoy the Piper at the Gates of Dawn version. This song is not on Pompeii, but however, it is on Nick Mason's, although a short version of 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Now, on the Nick Mason CD Blu-ray, Gary Kemp is on lead vocals, and it's much stronger vocal here. Lee Harris is on lead guitar, and the solo is much stronger. And in general, this version has much more punch compared to the Ummagumma version. More zip, bang, boom, pop, everything. They're just really rolling, but it is shorter. After Lee is done with the solo, Gary plays an abbreviated solo of maybe about 8 bars. And this version has a lot of great energy, even compared to the album version. But before I would have said the album version is my favorite, but now I'm going to say the Nick Mason Saucerful of Secrets version is better, even though it's a little bit shorter. Now, I brought up Pulse earlier. Pink Floyd Pulse on the first disc. There's a pretty good version of Astronomy Domini on here. It's also a short version at 4 minutes and 20 seconds, so Nick Mason sort of retained that shorter version of the song. It has a fuller sound due to just the sheer number of musicians on the stage. There's an extra keyboardist in John Caron and an extra drummer, Gary Wallace, I believe. And then the extra guitar player. And plus there's 3 backup vocalists. And I can hear both David and Rick's vocals really clear in this Pulse version. Okay. And also probably John Caron and Guy Pratt are singing too, but you can really hear David and Rick's vocals clear. The guitar solo is better than on Ummagumma, but it's also buried in the mix. And the organ is cranked up loud after the guitar solo, but I'll still say I prefer the Nick Mason version the best of Astronomy Domini. All right, let's go to the next track on Ummagumma is Careful with That Axe Eugene. By the way, I have a soft spot in my heart for this song. It's always kind of gets me going, and I think it's the dun dun dun. It really makes me think somebody's about to get murked when the music starts playing. Okay, now the Ummagumma version is 8 minutes and 47 seconds for Careful with That Axe Eugene. David Gilmour playing some cool guitar buried in the mix after the screaming part. And it sounds like he's doing some scat in the background, or maybe that's Roger Waters. I don't know who it is. This 1994 remaster, it's a fairly decent remaster compared to the originals from the 80s. Just if you've listened to remasters at all, they tend to be a lot better. It sounds pretty good on here. Okay, Careful with That Axe Eugene. So I like it quite a bit. Now the Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii version, it's shorter. It's Careful with That Axe Eugene comes in at 6 minutes and 45 seconds. The Pompeii version starts with some chatter from Roger Waters, like they're in the studio, and then it transitions the song, and then immediately goes into the dum dum dum. It's a much more richer, lusher, fuller mix on Pompeii. And again, it's a more mature version compared to Ummagumma. So I think they recorded this in 72 or 73 when they were making Dark Side of the Moon. That's when they went to Pompeii. So that, you know, they've got some years more wear and tear and travel, but also the experience really pays off. Even though it's shorter by a couple minutes, it's a more rewarding listen to and a better experience, in my opinion, the Pompeii version. Now this track is not on Nick Mason. But I just wanted to share quickly because I brought up the box set, Variations of a Theme of Absence. Come in number 51, Your Time Is Up. It's an even shorter version at 4 minutes and 59 seconds. This is a later take of Careful with That Axe, Eugene. And it's pretty close. I mean, but it's not the same. If you listen to it, you'll pick it up. The studio outtake sounds pretty darn good to me. Roger Waters screaming his head off, and there's a good guitar playing behind it. And it's not too different. It could be very well the same take that's on Zabriskie Point, as far as I know. There's also a version on this with the original title, Careful with That Axe, Eugene. It's 8 minutes and 51 seconds. That sounds very much like what you hear on Pompeii. And it's not the same, but it's similar. I mean, it's longer. It's stretched out, and they do a little bit more of the psychedelic stuff. All right, this is really fun. Let's carry on. Set the controls. Set the controls for The Heart of the Sun. Not my favorite Pink Floyd track, but decent and fun to listen to. And it's a Roger Waters composition, and you can hear it. The version on Ummagumma, 9 minutes and 21 seconds. You can hear the tom-toms really good around the 4-minute mark, and some spacey lead guitar and keyboards in the background. And that's the best part of the song, but on the Ummagumma version, it only lasts about 50 seconds. The second best part of the song is the next part, which goes up to the 8-minute mark. It's really spacey, scary sounds from the keyboards. Okay, so it's a really cool version of Set the Controls for The Heart of the Sun. The Pompeii version is longer. It's over a minute longer at 10 minutes and 35 seconds. The beginning part of the song, the keyboards are overpowering the bass and the lead guitar, and it's almost all keyboards and drums. It's rich and thick with keyboards. And Roger's vocals on the Pompeii version sound double-tracked. It's got a cool vocal effect. The jamming bongo part, the tom-toms that I mentioned, it seems to begin earlier here, around 3 minutes and 45 seconds, and it goes longer. So that's where they stretched it out. And my second favorite part of the track, which is after the tom-toms, they have the slide guitar turned up too loud on Pompeii. And it takes away from the creepiness of those evil keyboards that Richard Wright's playing. So too much slide guitar. I'm going to choose the Ummagumma version. That's to me, I prefer the Ummagumma version as a definitive over Pompeii. The Nick Mason version is the longest at 12 minutes and 21 seconds. Okay, it's excellent. Guy Pratt's on lead vocals, and he's playing the bass. And I like it. It doesn't compare that well to the... Guy Pratt's vocals, they don't compare as well to Roger Waters' vocals on Ummagumma or Pompeii, but it still works. Okay, Guy Pratt's vocals are good. And it's a very faithful version to the Pompeii version. It's just longer. And it has a lot of guitars mixed in with the tom-tom part. So they, rather than focusing on the creepiness of the keyboards, you can hear the guitars, but there's two guitar players, and it's in there. It's pretty good. It's not dominating over but it is taking away some of the scariness. The scary part is full of really creepy synth effects by keyboard master Dom Becken. Sorry, his name is Dom Becken. He's one of Richard Wright's understudies. And then Gary Kemp comes in. He puts down his guitar, he jumps on a synth, and he starts doing scary stuff too on a synth. So it's awesome. I love that version. I'm still going to go with Ummagumma as my favorite version of Set the Controls. And then let's give my guy a shout out. The Roger Waters version on In the Flesh is quite different. It's by far the shortest at 6:59, and it has a different beat. So right away, once they start playing, Roger Waters' drummer, whose name is escaping me. I think maybe Graham Broad. I think that's right, Graham Broad. He's got a different beat going, and the background singers are engaged, featuring P.P. Arnold and a couple other. So just like Pink Floyd, he's got 3 girls singing. And then at 2:47, there's quite a nice soprano saxophone solo by Norbert Stachel. Okay, it's quite cute. And then at 4 minutes, Snowy White plays this trippy guitar solo. It's not like on top of the music; it's sort of buried in the mix. But this is a video. The camera's focused on Snowy White, and you can watch him play it, and it sounds cool. And this version's cool because it's different. But it's missing the really long, scary keyboard part, which is the essential best part. The part with the tom-toms and then the Richard Wright part that follows after. But it is good. It's refreshing to hear that Roger does something different, okay? So that's In the Flesh for Set the Controls. All right, we're getting to the end now. A Saucerful of Secrets is the final track on Ummagumma. By the way, I'll note I like the studio album version too, which it comes in at 11:57. You guys know this. I've been doing a lot of Rush albums and listening, and just to get away from it all. The other day, a couple weeks ago, I put in a Pink Floyd mix. Just put it on shuffle on my iPod here, and I jumped in the shower. I was taking a shower, and it was playing on shuffle, and then Saucerful of Secrets, the studio album version, came on, and it is scary. It's scary. Those keyboards are scary. And just A Saucerful of Secrets is just one of the underrated Pink Floyd songs ever. And another shout out to Kay Schutz, but he is like, what are you doing? All 4 of these versions are excellent. So the Ummagumma version, it's almost a minute longer than the album version at 12:51. Storm Signals, that first section, it starts out at about 6 minutes and 30 seconds. That's the third version. Storm Signal and Celestial Voices are the best part of the song, okay? And that's the payoff for putting up with Something Else. Something Else is the opening part. It's the cymbal fade in and echoing organ and the slide guitar and the bass and chimes and the piano and the vibraphone and everything. And then Syncopated Pandemonium, that's the part that's a drum loop, and then it's cymbals and distorted guitars. David Gilmour on Pompeii, he's sitting there, and Rick Wright. So once you get to Storm Signal, the organ, bass, and drums dominate the part of the song and is mixed perfectly on Ummagumma. And I'm glad that the vocal part, when David Gilmour starts doing it's mixed underneath everything, a la, Danzig's Circle of Snakes era, where Danzig buried his vocals in the mix. By the way, I like Pink Floyd much better than I like Danzig. It's just the only thing that I could think of. The version of Saucerful of Secrets is much better. This is a terrific version, okay? It's much better than anything Danzig's ever done. I'll just say that. Okay. The Pompeii version, about the same. It's 2 seconds shorter, 12:49. What I love about this version of Saucerful of Secrets is how they don't beat around the bush, and they get right into the drumming part right away. And at 1 minute and 30 seconds, the Syncopated Pandemonium starts. So and then Roger Waters is slamming on some cymbals, and Rick Wright he's pounding his arms and elbows on the piano, like, and he's going, and Roger Waters, he's at 3:15, he just starts smashing the gong, and he looks crazy. They're like, honestly, they look like 4 cavemen. I love this version. Okay. It's all performance and power, no precision. They're just gung-ho. Storm Signal on this version starts at 5:12, and it's about 2 minutes ahead of the studio version and the Ummagumma version, and it's beautiful. Rick Wright on the organ, Nick Mason on a hi-hat, and there's some standing up slide guitar by David Gilmour. And about 8-minute mark, Gilmour starts playing some more arpeggiated electric guitar lines. It's harder to, you can't hear it so well on the Ummagumma, but you can hear it on Pompeii. It's good, and Gilmour starts singing around the 8:35 mark, which is different. This is a good version. I still, excuse me, I like this version better. Now, the Nick Mason at 9:58 end to end, and there's some applause in there, but it's just under 10 minutes, so it's shorter than the Ummagumma or Pompeii version. What they do is they take something else. About 2 minutes and 45 seconds is when it ends, and switches over to the syncopated part. That goes until the 4-minute mark on the Blu-ray, and so those two parts are shortened. And with Storm Signal, what Dom Becken plays here in Storm Signal is beautiful and an homage to Richard Wright. I mean, it's amazing. Okay, and then there's a slide guitar on top of it, but the main thing you get here is the organ with Storm Signal. Storm Signal is the best part of the song to me. And then it starts to blend together well at about the 6-minute mark, and then the drums kick in at about 6:30 for a perfect ending to the song. And Gary Kemp is the lead vocals, and he's singing the Gilmour part, and then he plays an electric guitar solo starting around 8 minutes and 30 seconds. It's a pretty darn good version, and it's different. And you got to hand it to Nick Mason, who came up with really clever arrangements for these early Floyd songs. So yeah, that's the end of the Ummagumma live album comparison. Now, I did mention briefly at the end, at the beginning, that at the end I would talk about some of these tracks that are on both Pompeii and Nick Mason. With Echoes, so Echoes, it's not on the Blu-ray. It's not on this. Okay. But Nick Mason came around last year in 2022 and played it, and it was just spectacular. I mean, the keyboards at the beginning, when Dom Becken started going, that whole bong, 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 you know, that part, that was unbelievable. And I wish it was on here, but it's not. They didn't play it on this tour. I hope I get to hear a recorded version from 2022. The Pompeii version is generally my favorite version of Echoes, even better than the studio album. But the issue that I have with it is it's broken up into 2 parts. So you got to listen to it at the beginning, and then it's the last thing you hear at the end. And I wish it was just one song at the beginning. I'll also note, I got the 2 David Gilmour. These are from the same tour, although this one came early. This is Royal Albert Hall, and then this one came later. These are from the On an Island tour. I think this was one of the last shows, but I think it's the last time Richard Wright played with Pink Floyd alive. Those are pretty good. They've got like in the jam part of Echoes in the middle, it is more, it's got like a thumping beat that's different from what you hear on Pompeii or on the album. Okay, One of These Days is also, it's on those. It's not one of my favorite tunes. There's also a third version on the Pulse DVD, which I have here. I mean, it's okay. It's One of These Days. It's the album kicker for metal, for Pink Floyd metal. It's a fine instrumental. It's just not one of my favorite tunes. Let's wrap it up. We're going pretty long. I gotta say that was fun. Ummagumma is an important album for Pink Floyd, as each member develops their songwriting and production skills. And, you know, they wanted to do this because Rick Wright, he wanted to make real music, is what he said, but then none of them were real happy with what's on the studio part. What this does is it captures the live music from that era that they like to play live, and it's scary and ferocious and psychedelic. And the music makes for interesting evening listenings, or if you're driving around or whatever. It's cool. If you don't have it, you should have this. All right, let's wrap it up. Next on the channel, I'm gonna do the Stage 4 Rush ranking and summary. I got some other Rush stuff plans, and I'm gonna wrap that up. And then we're just going to cruise right along into the future. Coach Plow Guy's out.